In this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders, Polnareff feels the full wrath of Enya, the enraged crusty witch. He reluctantly has his tongue pierced, and thanks to the devastating power of Enya's stand, the Justice, he is forced to clean a shit-stained toilet with nothing but his tongue. Safe to say, Polnareff is having one hell of a week. Luckily for him, he is saved at the last moment by the most badass JoJo of all, Jotaro Kujo. And a fun fact we actually get to learn in this week's episode, that Jotaro is actually a fan of the classic 1968 detective series, Columbo, because that's exactly the type of references we want in our anime series. Italian detectives played by Peter Falk. All joking aside, this was another fantastic episode of Stardust Crusaders, which contained all of the series' trademarks, such as a lot of action, tons of style, and lots of humor. In fact, I loved the build-up to the battle between Jotaro and Enya, because it gave us a chance to focus on Polnareff, who I really feel is a standout character in the series, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Dude needs to get his own spin-off series. He is so funny. I love how at the beginning of the episode, he just busts right into Enya's room right after she killed Whole Horse. She hasn't even hit his body yet. He's still hanging out there on the ground. And luckily, Polnareff does not notice this, and he's just so focused on Enya, and he's just such a prying, needy, and nosy person, because he just wants to know everything about Enya, and he starts questioning, like, why do you live here all alone? Why don't you have a family? Why don't you have a son? And this is just pissing her off all the more, because she just wants to slaughter Polnareff, because he's the one who actually killed her son, Jay Guile. The tension in this scene reaches a boiling point until Enya just explodes with anger and decides, screw this, I'm going to show you my stand and all of its cool abilities. And we've already seen before that she can use this fog to control people through the wounds in their bodies, but we now know that she can actually control dead corpses, and she calls all of the people who are actually in that town back to the hotel, and apparently they were all under her control. And the scene here is really disturbing because she's controlling women, she's controlling men, but also dogs and children. It's really messed up. And Polnareff gets his tongue pierced by the fog, and then she literally drags him down this hallway. He tries to escape, and then she tries to make him lick this toilet bowl. And they never show it, but it's definitely implied that he definitely did this because Joseph Joestar at the end is giving him a real hard time and just being really goofy as he usually is. The battle between Jotaro and Enya is exciting and it has a nice little twist to it. It opens up with Jotaro doing what he does best, which is just punching the crap out of shit, but that doesn't work. And there's a scene where Enya uses one of her corpses, which is actually a baby, which actually stabs Jotaro in the leg, and that's just a really freaky scene. And it's at this point you think he's probably going to get caught by the fog, but that's when his stand actually begins to inhale and suck in all of the Justice stand into its body, and this actually causes Enya to suffocate and pass out. And they actually decide not to finish her off, and that's because they just want to learn a little bit more about all of the people who are trying to kill them, and a little bit more about Dio. But what's really surprising about this whole episode is that, believe it or not, Whole Horse is alive. I don't know how he survived, and how he got through all of the crazy shit that was going on this week, but he actually steals their Jeep, and even decides that he's going to work with Dio, so what a dickhead. What's up with him? Why would he do that? Either way, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders? I loved it. I love this whole series, and I love where they're going. And every episode is really inventive and really awesome, and frankly, the show just has a lot of style. That's probably my favorite thing about it. But what I love most about it is it's a great mixture of everything. There was a lot of humor this week, especially in the first half of the episode. Any scene that involves Polnareff is bound to be a laugh riot, but it also always manages to have a little bit of action in it as well. I love actually when Enya was finally first starting to attack Polnareff, he really didn't even know how to judge her quite yet. He was using his silver chariot, but she was still able to fight back even with a pair of scissors, but he probably still didn't fully understand what was going on quite yet. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he is kind of thick. But luckily, Jotaro is there to pick up the pieces and save the day. I loved his scene this week, especially when he busted in the door and came in and started talking to Enya, and he immediately started intimidating her. In fact, they made it very clear because they just love having that floating lettering. That's just a thing they love doing in JoJo. I didn't hate it in the first season, and I'm not opposed to it here. I think it adds a lot to the series, and again, gives it a lot of style. The fact that the Star Platinum was able to defeat something without the use of just punching something is really impressive and just shows that it's probably going to have a lot of abilities that can go into a lot of crazy directions aside from just punching stuff. But don't get me wrong, I love when it does its multiple punches. That shit is just badass. But other things that were great this week is the animation, the artwork, the voice acting, the music. Not to mention, Whole Horse is going to return. I think he was a really interesting character. I still call him basically the Western version of Polnareff, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do in the rest of the series. And frankly, I don't know how Dio is going to react to him if he actually comes back, because Dio's not exactly the most understanding of person. I mean, you know, the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am, if you know what I mean. So overall, I thought this was a pretty great episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. A little heavy on the humor, but overall we got a lot of action at the end to back that up, so it was still a pretty nice package. And I'm really interested to see how Whole Horse is going to play into the actual story later on. And now that we're through this first group of stand users, the bar has certainly been raised. And by keeping Enya with the group, clearly this is going to cause a lot of trouble, and Whole Horse actually leaves them with that message saying that if you don't kill her now, chances are you're going to feel the full wrath of Dio, and I cannot wait to see what that's going to be. So check out this week's episode. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was a little heavy on the humor a little bit in the beginning, but at least it was enjoyable. So check it out, guys. Great episode. Thank you guys for watching my review today. If you guys would like to tell me what you thought about this week's episode, please do. You can tell me with your comments below. What did you think of the confrontation between Jotaro and Enya? And before you leave, please give this video a like so you can give it a thumbs up. It really helps out the videos a lot. And subscribe to the channel if you have not already. You can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. You'll see all of that information in the description box below. So guys, that concludes my review today. Super Kami Guru 9000, out.